Alright, this is how I replace shock mounts on a beam shell. Glue gets old, pops off, and I'm going to show you how I re-glue them to make them work again. First, we're going to take the base off. Pretty simple. Either got screws or bolts. Unscrew those, get the base off, and I'll show you how we clean it up and get it ready for glue. Okay, now that I got the base off, I'm going to get off most of this old epoxy with a hammer and a chisel so I don't have to sit here and grind it away. And all I do is stick this on the back of it and give a little tap. And as you can see, it gets off quite a bit of the epoxy. Now you don't have as much to grind off. Okay, the next step is you can either get sandpaper and start sanding this away until you get all the old epoxy off. But what I like to do is use an air compressor and this tool. It's a little grinder wheel, and it makes the job a lot faster. Then it gives you a nice clean fiberglass base to work with that your new glue will stick to. So do that everywhere you need to replace a mount. Now what I like to do next is get a little bit of rubbing alcohol or acetone or something just to get the rest of the residue off of the bottom here. You could use Windex if you want, it doesn't matter. Just get all the dust from sanding off the base. Gives you a nice clean surface for the epoxy to stick to. And then I have an H base that I use for my template because the H base gives a lot less room for air. So what we'll do is we'll mount the base to the shocks that are still good. And then we're going to mark where our new mounts go because you have to be pretty exact or you're going to have a really hard time getting your new base on if they're not lined up right. So these aren't glued in, but they're going to be positioned where they need to go. And then just use a Sharpie or a pen and mark a little bit of where these new mounts will line up. And that gives you a guide to glue. You can pull your base back off. And then now we have a guide to know where to glue our two new good shock mounts. Okay, now that we have our base nice and clean, what we have is some rubberized super glue, nothing fancy. These are the two items that I picked up off of Amazon for about $7 each. This is the rubberized super glue. This is an activator that just makes it dry super fast, so you don't have to worry about drips running down the back of your chair or not having your shock mount stay in place after you stick it on there. Sometimes they like to slide around a little bit and get out of alignment. So that's the same glue that you can buy from Modern Conscience, except theirs is just a little bit more expensive. But as you can see, it's rubber toughened super glue. It's all the same stuff, same package. Just save yourself a couple bucks and buy whatever's cheapest. So now that we've got our markings, what we're going to do is we're just going to squeeze some glue on this, stick it on the chair, and spray it with our activator, and that will keep it from shifting around on us. So for the glue, you don't want to do too much. I do about the size of a quarter right in the middle of the mount. Flip it over and spray it, and we should be good to go. Let's see. Just kind of hold it in place for a second. This activator will dry that glue super fast. And there you have it. There's your replaced shock mount. I advise not to sit on it until it's totally dry. Sometimes I let these things just sit overnight before I mount them up again, but realistically you can probably use them after about 30 minutes. Put your glue on the mount. Line it up with your markings. Then just spray your activator. Give it another 10 or 15 seconds. You should be good to go. Now I buy my replacement shock mounts from SKP products, Special K products. Just get them on eBay. It's usually where I buy them. You can buy them, I think, from their website now if it's set up, but they seem to work good. Haven't had any problems with them in the past, and they're cheap and they ship good, and they got good customer service. So that's where I get my replacement mounts. I think they're about 20 bucks a set. All right, it's been about 15 minutes. Our shock mounts are on there good and tight. You know, as you can see, I can't get them off or twist them, but one last thing I like to do is where I've sanded, it's a little bit discolored, and a good way to kind of hide that, if you care, is this product called Pentrol. Pick it up at Home Depot. Anyways, I'll show you what it does. I got a little bit on a rag here, and when you wipe it on the parts of the shell that you've sanded, it cleans it up nice, reseals the fiberglass a little bit, keeps it wet looking so your colors blend. So now you can see it looks a little bit cleaner. It gets rid of that dried, sanded off part, but you don't have to do it. If you want to do it, it's kind of nice to put this on the bottom after you sand. Some people use this for the top of the chairs that are really old and trashed, but I'm not a big fan of it on the top of the chairs. I would rather just polish them up a little bit. But it works really good on the bottom. So after you sand off that old glue and you got your nick marks, just rub a little bit of that on there, and it brightens the fiberglass right up and makes them look nice and clean.